The moment you put them down, they scream. Not after a few seconds, not after a minute, the exact second your arms let go. You've seen it. You've heard it. Maybe you've lived it at 3 in the morning, exhausted, confused, whispering, "Why won't you just sleep?" But here's what nobody tells you. That cry isn't random. It isn't manipulation, and it isn't just hunger or discomfort. That cry is one of the oldest survival signals in human history, and it's still running inside every baby born today. We live in a world of smart technology, modern medicine, and parenting books that promise answers. And yet, this tiny ancient behavior still leaves millions of parents completely helpless every single night. Why? Because what's really happening when a baby cries the moment you put them down has nothing to do with being spoiled, nothing to do with bad parenting, and nothing to do with what you did wrong. It goes deeper than that. It reaches back hundreds of thousands of years to a time when being put down didn't mean being placed in a soft crib in a warm room. It meant something far more dangerous, and somehow babies still remember. Most people assume the answer is simple. The baby is tired. The baby wants attention. The baby is just being difficult. Parents are told, let them cry it out. They'll learn. They'll adjust. Pediatricians for decades told parents that responding too quickly would create dependency, that picking up a crying baby too fast would train them to cry more, that the solution was distance, routine, consistency. And on the surface, that sounds logical. But here's the problem. That theory was built on behavioral models from the early 1900s, models that treated babies like small adults, like rational beings making calculated decisions to get what they want. What those models completely ignored was evolution. Because babies aren't making decisions when they cry, they're not thinking at all. Something far older than thought is doing the work. In 2013, researchers at Riken Brain Science Institute in Japan conducted a study that changed how we understand infant crying completely. They measured what happened inside a baby's body, heart rate, cortisol levels, muscle tension, during 2 specific moments. First, when the baby was held and carried. Second, when the baby was placed down on a flat surface. What they found surprised everyone. The moment a baby was lifted and carried, their heart rate dropped, their crying stopped, their muscles relaxed, their entire nervous system shifted into a state of calm. But the moment they were placed down, the opposite happened. Instantly, almost mechanically, like a switch being flipped. Heart rate spiked. Cortisol, the stress hormone, surged through their tiny bodies. Muscles tensed, and the cry began. This wasn't emotional. This wasn't behavioral. This was biological, automatic, ancient. The researchers called it the transport response, a deeply embedded neurological reflex that activates the moment a baby senses it is no longer being carried. And then they asked the real question, why does this reflex exist at all? Here is what they discovered. For the vast majority of human history, for hundreds of thousands of years, human babies were never put down. Ever. There were no cribs, no bassinets, no safe sleep surfaces. There were no walls, no locked doors, no heated rooms. There was only the wild, and the wild had predators. A baby left on the ground, even for 30 seconds, was a baby in danger. From animals, from cold, from separation in environments where getting lost meant death. So, evolution did what evolution always does. It built a system that screams the moment contact is broken, a system so immediate, so automatic, so impossible to ignore that no parent in the history of our species could simply walk away. That system is still running today. inside every baby born in every hospital in every modern city on Earth, that ancient alarm is still active, still coded into their nervous system, still scanning for danger the moment your arms let go. Your baby isn't crying because they're difficult. Your baby is crying because somewhere deep inside their biology, they believe their life depends on it. But here's where it gets even stranger. Because this reflex doesn't just affect the baby, it was specifically designed to affect you. In a follow-up study conducted at Harvard Medical School, researchers examined what happened inside the parent's brain the moment a baby began to cry. They placed new mothers inside fMRI machines, brain scanners, and played them recordings of infant crying. Then they watched what happened in real time. The results were extraordinary. The moment that cry hit their ears, the brain didn't just process it as sound. It triggered an immediate cascade of neurological responses, activating the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for threat detection, lighting up the motor cortex, the part that controls physical movement, and releasing a flood of oxytocin, the bonding hormone, that made standing still feel almost physically impossible. In other words, the baby's cry was neurologically designed to make the parent move. Not think, not decide, move. One researcher described it like this: the infant cry is not a request, it is a command, and the parent's brain is wired to obey it. Think about that for a moment. Two separate nervous systems, two separate bodies, separated by empty air, and yet completely synchronized, one transmitting a signal, the other receiving it, both doing exactly what evolution programmed them to do thousands of years before language ever existed. This isn't just parenting. This is one of the most sophisticated biological communication systems ever discovered in nature. And here is why this matters to you. Even if you have never held a baby in your life, that same ancient wiring lives inside you. Every time you feel a sudden urge to comfort someone in distress, you are feeling a version of this. Every time a stranger's cry on a film makes your chest tighten, that is the system activating. Every time you cannot walk past someone who is hurt without stopping, that is evolution speaking through you. You were built for connection, not as a choice, not as a personality trait, as a biological imperative. You are not just observing this story, you are made of it. But here is where the science takes one more unexpected turn. Researchers studying the transport response noticed something that didn't fit the original theory. Babies didn't just calm down when any person picked them up. The calming effect was strongest, measurably, biologically strongest, when the person carrying them was familiar, a parent, a caregiver, someone whose heartbeat the baby already knew. Because here is something most people don't realize. Babies recognize heartbeats. For 9 months before a single word was spoken, before a single face was seen, a baby spent every moment listening to one sound, the rhythm of their mother's heart. That sound became their definition of safety, their neurological baseline for what calm feels like. When you hold a baby against your chest, they aren't just feeling warmth. They are hearing a sound they have known longer than they have known light. They are home. And the moment that sound disappears, the ancient alarm fires. Because in the only world their nervous system has ever known, silence meant danger. Now here is something important, something the science is only beginning to understand, and something no parenting book will tell you clearly enough. The stress response triggered in babies during prolonged separation isn't just uncomfortable in the moment. Studies from the University of Notre Dame and the work of developmental psychologist Dr. Darcia Narvaez suggest that repeated activation of this stress response, prolonged crying without response, extended separation in early infancy, can affect the developing stress regulation system in ways that last far beyond babyhood. Not every method, not every situation. Context matters enormously, but the data is becoming harder to ignore. The nervous system that is forming in those first months, the one learning whether the world is safe or threatening, is being shaped by every response it receives or doesn't receive. This isn't guilt, this is information, because knowing why the cry exists changes how we hear it. It transforms it from an inconvenience into a signal, from manipulation into meaning, and meaning changes everything. The next time you hear a baby cry the moment they're put down, you'll know. You'll know that what you're hearing isn't weakness, it isn't noise, it isn't a problem to be solved. What you're hearing is hundreds of thousands of years of human survival compressed into a single sound. A sound that kept our ancestors alive in the dark. A sound that built civilizations, not through language, not through war, not through invention, but through the unbreakable pull between a child and the person who carries them. We built the modern world. We built hospitals and highways and skyscrapers and satellites. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, a baby still cries the moment you let go. Not because something is wrong, but because something is working exactly as it was always meant to. The most ancient software on Earth, still running, still perfect, still keeping us close. So here's a question I want you to sit with. If babies are born with this level of biological sophistication, this deeply wired need for connection and safety, what else are they carrying that we haven't discovered yet? What else is happening inside that tiny mind that science is only beginning to decode? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. And if this changed how you think about babies or about yourself, share it with someone who needs to hear it, because the next video in this series goes even deeper. We're going to talk about what babies actually understand before they can speak a single word. And trust me, it will change how you see every conversation you've ever had.